Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at our ambassador interview series. Today we have the honor of having Her Excellency Maria Castillo-Fernandez, ambassador of the European Union delegation to the Republic of Korea, joining us. She has been with us since last September of last year, and we are especially happy to have her join us today as we celebrate Women's History Month in March. And we just celebrated the International Women's Day yesterday. And we have 16 female ambassadors in the country, which is incredible. So welcome, Ambassador. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us today. And I would like to actually start the conversation about the women issue. And I've read the recent Korea Economic Institute study about the South Korean gender gap. And I've read that the COVID-19 has actually widened the South Korea's gender gap, which is unfortunate. But we understand that the equality between women and men is a fundamental value of the European Union, dating back to the 1957 Treaty of Rome, which established the principle of equal pay for equal work. And since then, the EU has continued to tackle gender-based discrimination. And today, Europe is one of the safest and fairest places for women in the world. So as a female ambassador from the EU, what kind of insights would you like to share with our Korean audience about women's empowerment, especially in decision-making positions in politics and business?
Well, congratulations to all of us. Women who are listening, and also men. I think we need them to do things together in this area. Yesterday we celebrate the Women's Day, and while I was also chatting with civil society and all these organizations of women pushing by, I was telling them that the 8th of March and the March month, as you mentioned, is a reminder, but we need to really have gender equality in all what we do. In all what we do, because I think women are agents of change. We make change happen for our families, for our work, for our communities, for our country. And, there is a long way to go. You've mentioned it. But progress is not enough, and there is still a long way still forward. No country in the world has managed to be on track on the 2030 gender equality goal. Not even Europe, not even Korea, as you mentioned. And one of the dimensions of this is about participation of women in decision-making, in power positions, in leadership, in politics. And there we are even perhaps more down the way. You know that only 25% of women are members of parliaments around the world. In Korea, this is now around 19th in your last election, they tell me. But at least you have moved, and even 2% is small, but it's a movement. In Europe, on parliamentary and political positions, there we are perhaps more advanced. So we are 40% now in the last European Parliament. So this is important because more women means also more gender dimension in all the policies, in all the legislation that we do, in all the decisions, changing a bit the management culture in business, which is important. If we look at other dimensions like peace and security, we don't only speak about women as victims, but women as persons that can provide another vision of conflict prevention, of crisis management. And this is all important. It paved the way for better legislation. But we need to change many other things. There are many challenges. This is about creating, putting ceilings that we really comply with in boards, in business, also in our administrations. Yesterday, our Secretary General said that he wanted to put in place an action plan to get to the 40% of women in diplomacy in the European Union service. So, we are it's still difficult. As you said, we are only 16 or 18 now. Perhaps there are 2 more, I think, that have come, ambassadors in Seoul, but from Europe, we are only 3. So this is not the right, we cannot present ourselves well either. So it's still, there are many careers and many paths where are still very, very difficult for women to find their way. But what is important is 2 things. First, mainstreaming. That when we now think about recovery, we always think about digital and green. Let us put also the gender dimension in it. Let us put gender in all our policies, and also do it together with men. As I said before, this is not about only women. This is about changing mentalities, stereotypes, discrimination laws, but also starting with education. I think the change is at home, in our schools, in our workplace. We can make the change. You can make the change in what you do at your place as well. So this is about an enormous effort to educate, to each of us taking our part in this process, so that we can move it forward quickly.
That sounds great. And you've been here since September, so you probably had a lot of chance to familiarize yourself with the Korean culture. And as you have noticed, the year 2020, which was last year, marked a very successful year for K-pop. And the number of Europeans watching K-dramas on Netflix has increased by 250% compared to last year. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the pandemic also. But having started off as such a neat culture, the genre has exploded to become a global phenomenon. It is increasingly going mainstream in Europe, particularly, with leading numbers from France, Germany, and the UK. So why do you think K-pop clicked for so many Europeans?
Well, this is one of your strengths now, so you need to use it. Why? Because Korea and part of Asia were very much unknown to Europeans, and now through culture, you get to know better the countries, you get to know better the people. It builds bridges, it brings people together. It's one of the most intense and I think important tools that we have in diplomacy, but to really get to know the country where and a completely different culture. And you also see that there is very similar understanding through culture. People get together. It can be the younger generation with K-pop music. It can be the cinemas, how important the Korean films, not only the dramas. I mean, we are all addicted to that, including myself. But it is important, how important the films have now been recognized very much internationally. Not only Parasite, but a week ago you had Minari, and more to come. That is little by little the understanding of a culture that suddenly comes out, and that also means Korean classical music. They have so many talented musicians in European orchestras, soprano Sumiyo or the pianist Cho Sung-jin, and many others. When we come here, for us the culture is one of the big plus that Korea and Seoul has to offer us, but also that means also creative industries. I think the government here has done quite a lot to open up a space for creative industries, for innovation, for startups, supporting startups that start with creativity, and that is very, very important. And what is important is diversity, and I want to put that to highlight that as a bit more. Europe is about 27 cultures together. And this is our motto, unity in diversity, very important. Culture as really as a tool to promote cultural exchanges, to promote cooperation. And that's a tool I am going to use as well. It's very important. This is about the 27 cultures in Europe, and I think that also appeals to Koreans. I know tourism has scaled up, and you also come to Europe for a culture, and culture also means food. It means pottery here. It means clothes. It's such a variety, and from what I was experienced before 12 years ago when I first came here, and now, that is an immense area field that has increased and has so much potential.
And you have such an extensive career in a lot of areas, including political and economic relations, legal advisor, and manager of research programs in the field of exchanges and mobility of EU scientists. and one of your careers actually focused on the human rights and children's rights. And last year was a big win for the what's called ESG trends, or some environmental, social, and governance campaigns. And the new due diligence legislation by the EU this year is expected to raise the bar on human rights reporting in business. And some say this can be a game changer, the same way the European legislation changed the playing field for data privacy globally. So could you please talk about the potential spillover effect this legislation is going to have for regions outside of Europe?
Well, first, I think we all agree that trade needs to be fair, needs to be sustainable, needs to be responsible, and coherent to the values we all are upholding. And these are values of human rights and values of environmental standards now. We also agree that supply chains need to be sustainable and responsible, even more now after the pandemic. So yes, we are preparing some legislation measures that mainly go in the sense of sustainable corporate governance. We try to perhaps make mandatory environmental, human, and labor standards in our trade action. I don't think anyone wants to see that in the supply chain of the product or the companies that are Europeans, or the products that go to Europe, that there is forced labor in it. Something I don't think even Korea wants to see that, and you as a consumers neither. So this is the objective of what we are going to do. There is a public consultation now going on in Europe. We are going to have an assessment of that, and then we will come with some measures probably by the end of the year. So it's very difficult to say any spillover because we don't have the measures there. It's just a first public consultation of the problem and how we can address it together, but always within the rules and the international legal order. We are very much rule based and supporting the rules and the system, so that we can all have work properly and have a chance.
And South Korea is known to be the only country with whom the EU has entered into the 3 major agreements of the strategic partnership. 1, the framework agreement, which is political, and 2, the free trade agreement, which is economic. And lastly, the framework participation agreement for crisis management operations, which concerns security. So where does EU-Korea relations go from here? I mean, is there a specific area of bilateral relations they feel particularly passionate about?
Well, where do we go from here? We have now 10 years of a strategic partnership. We are 10 years old. I mean, no, our relation is longer, but this strategic partnership is 10 years old, and it's still there to grow. And as you said, has 3 pillars: cooperation, security, and trade and investment. But what we want to do also more than bilaterally is to shoulder together our responsibilities in the multilateral front. That means to restore together multilateralism, to support an international order based on rule, and to, like this, face all the important challenges that we go. It can be migration, it can be climate, it can be health now. So we have enough on our plates. But also that pushes us together to work on the green recovery. And I mentioned that before on the women's side. The green recovery is important. We have the same goals and ambitions. the President Moon administration has done a lot in a very short time, 1 year, to push in place, the carbon neutrality 2050 goal, the Korean deal, and a very ambitious plan on climate. And we are very happy to have them with us in that ambition. Now we need both of us to put action into our words and try to see what this means and how we can now adapt all our legislation and our policies to this. This is a radical revolution, and it affects everyone. It affects us as citizens and all persons. It affects the business, the governments, the legislators. We are going to change our way we produce, the way we live, the way we even interact and move, because the mobility will be different, the way we produce and we use energy. So everyone has to be on board on that, and therefore this agenda is very important, because we need to deliver on Paris, and we have the P4G and we have the COP26 later in the year. Then we have the trade side, the trade pillar, 10 years also of FTA. This has been one of for me, I always said, I was here when we launched negotiations, and I always said this has been a model for Asia, because all the other FTAs have been based on the Korean model. And this is important. Now we need to use it to our full. We are very happy that a week ago the National Assembly adopted the ILO conventions, ratification of convention, which is this part of the sustainable development trade provisions of our agreement. And this is an area where not many FTAs have it, but important. It links what you were saying before with the due diligence on environment and labor standards. So it goes hand in hand, and that is a very important area. So still use the full potential of this agreement. And then the third area is security. You mentioned expand cooperation. Korean and European warships have been together in Somalia trying to fight piracy, and we are all over the world in many missions together as Europeans, and there is a lot yet to do on cybersecurity, on counterterrorism, on crisis management. We have an experience as Europeans, an experience in crisis management. So that is one of the areas where we need to push more. You said what are the specific areas where I feel passionate? Well, I am a people's person. I will define myself, and that means certainly reach out to foster people contacts, to get to know the people here, the younger, the artists, the jewelers, because I like a lot of jewelry, the handicrafts, the artists, the civil society. It's very important the role civil societies play, and how we have to engage in every aspect of our policy with them, but also the researchers. You mentioned I've been working in research. At that time was the pushing research mobility. I am still doing this. This is very important. We need to work with researchers and innovations together for the pandemic, for the green and innovation agenda, for many of those. So that is also one of my passions, and I would say Korean Peninsula in general. Korea has been my house, or will be my house, my third home, where the place where I will have lived more in my life, Madrid, Brussels, and Seoul. So, and I have been traveling all through the Korean Peninsula, north and south. So I feel very attached to these people, and I would like to see the project of peace in the Korean Peninsula. Europe is a peace project. And I have been working 35 years now on this peace project. So I would like, part of that life has also been to work with Koreans on a peace project here. So those are my two big passions, which are too big.
We really love your enthusiasm, and I really hope that people can even feel your passion over the internet. Lastly, I think you are a foreign diplomat, and so it's hard not to talk about the North Korea issues. Have you been to North Korea? Have you had the opportunity yet?
Many times, but in my past life, when I was here before.
Okay. I mean,
when I was here before, many times.
Okay. So the EU has been very supportive of the engagement efforts between the two Koreas, while maintaining a strong position against North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. So how do you assess the peace process? You just talked about peace process in the Korean Peninsula as envisioned by Seoul, and how the global community might play a larger role in bringing the two Koreas together?
Well, for peace, you need dialogue. And I think dialogue is a key. So all the efforts that can be done in South Korea with this administration to support the inter-Korean dialogue or the US-North Korea dialogue for denuclearization are important. We would like to see a Korea Peninsula that lives in peace, in stability, and without nuclear weapons. That is really the goal that we all have. So we have been continually supporting those efforts, and with a policy which they call critical engagement, but it has two parts. One, the other side, maintain the pressure, especially with the enforcement of sanctions. These are very important. Not only the UN sanctions, but European Union has some autonomous sanctions. But also at the same time, an engagement hand to keep channels of communication open. That is very important, and also to see the needs of the people of North Korea, to see the humanitarian needs, because the situation there is very critical as well. So we stand ready to help in supporting this diplomatic process, which is in a key moment now. We are all in a waiting and see situation, but we all need to keep calm and to try to give dialogue and peace a chance. That would be
great. I mean, it was such a pleasure to talk to you. I mean, your optimism brings so much hope, and it just brightens my day.
It's difficult. I know life is not so simple.
And I really hope that we'll get to meet in person very soon. And I hope that you will also be able to join our programs in the future. But in the meantime, I hope that you continue to stay safe and healthy. And I look forward to going jewelry shopping with you someday.
You tell me where to
go. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you to all. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.